Welcome to five not so old gentlemen talk touch. Looking ahead to the 2024 World Cup, joined by Mark Holmes, who's head coach from the men's 50s, Christian Garland from the men's 50s, Ian Rowberry from the men's 55s. Mark, just give us a quick summary of how things are going over the winter.
They've been going really, really well. We had quite a big bunch of guys together to begin with. And some have transitioned up to the 55s, which is really good to see that they can continue their journey. Yeah, it's just been fun. Definitely not in the sun, in a lot of boggy pitches and wet times. But yeah, it's been going really well, and we've been concentrating really hard. Obviously, the main focus is the World Cup coming up. And to do our best there. We've called it our Dare to Dream tour. So we're all buying into the everything that comes along with running around a pitch, being over 50 and throwing that lovely shaped ball around. It's been good fun so far. Looking forward to the drier weather a little bit.
Christian, just before we came on, you were saying you've been in and around, since 2010. The last few years, the last few tournaments, how has being in this setup, how have you found it as a player?
The general trend I've found since 2010, when I started with England Touch, the coaching has got a lot better and the knowledge has got a lot better across players as well. So the last sort of 5 years, I've been more involved in coaching. I went away from playing in 2017 and thought I need to go and learn more because I'd kind of reached a little bit of a glass ceiling. And my fascination with the game was just still there. And I thought, let's step back now and go and learn a bit more about the technical side of attack and defense, midfield, transitioning, all this kind of stuff. I kind of came back into a squad last year. Had a few health scares as well. So luckily there were no issues with my heart. But I had that looked at. When you get older, I guess you kind of get a little bit worried about, your body's going to fall apart at any moment. Hopefully not. So I got the all clear. So then I can start, training again and getting back into playing. But it's been brilliant. In the 50s, as Mark said, there was a big squad, but a great atmosphere. I think everybody knows how lucky they are to be able to play sport at an elite level, hopefully, when we're over 50. And it's amazing how sort of fit everybody is, to be honest with you. I think that's testament to sort of our own personal goals and love for the sport. And we kind of look after ourselves, I guess. We'll probably play quite regularly. That's the other thing about touch, is that you can sort of play, hopefully, without fear of too bad injuries compared to like union. I retired from union, really. I was an open side. And the guys were getting bigger and younger, and I was getting more and more injured and older. So it was a great sport to find. But so absolutely been brilliant. I've enjoyed it so much thus far, and can't wait to push on and hopefully make selection for the World Cup.
Reflecting on Malaysia in 2019, when there were 6 teams in the men's 50s, and one of them was a GB, almost a GB scratch team, and now we've got going into 2024 with 14 teams in the men's 50s. I mean, the sport's just exploded for as you say, older gentlemen wanting to play. I mean, we'll cover women's 40s and women's 35s with their respective teams in the future, but but for the men's 50s and men's 55s, it's just exploded.
I just think the nature of the game is that as long as you stay healthy and a good weight and spend your time, training your body, eating well, you can play later in life and play to a good level. So I guess that's one of the greatest pulls of the game, really, is that you can just carry on playing, and also the camaraderie is fantastic. But yeah, that many teams in the World Cup at this age group, and now we have 55s as well. So wonderful stuff.
Mark, just having a quick rundown. I mean, the teams range from Australia to Chile to Fiji. Some more domestic ones. Who are you looking forward to coaching against the most?
I think he's got to be Australia and New Zealand, without a doubt. Coached, assistant coach in 45s at the last World Cup against them, got our best ever results. So yeah, it'd be good to pitch our brains against them and our tactical nous and see where we can work. It's very much a Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere sort of style of touch scenario. So it will be really, really interesting, and see how far we've closed the gap. We do dream that we could turn one of them over. We never know. It's the World Cup, home turf. They've got to travel further. So yeah, it'll be good. But also, there's new teams in there that we've not seen and we've not played against. So it is very new. So it'll be interesting to see how we pitch ourselves and how we deal with different styles of play that come at us. I mean, realistically, over the last couple of years, we've only really played Wales, Singapore, and France. So it'll be. I played Ireland as well, so it'll be interesting to see. Like I say, all the other teams. We know very little about them, about some of them. So yeah, it'll be good, really challenging, but looking forward to it.
Andy, is it the same for you in terms of who you're looking forward to coaching against at the 55s? And it's a slightly smaller pool, but I mean, 6 teams still in the men's 55s. Again, it's just extraordinarily viable division.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. Yeah, I was just about to mention the fact that the pool is a viable pool. So it's not going to be a round robin per se. It's going to be a full-on competition amongst Australia, New Zealand, USA, Ireland, Wales, and ourselves. And you're touching on some stats around what that means, and you called out the 14 teams and the 6 teams with the 50s and 55s categories combined, and that's 20 teams additionally that's coming to the World Cup. That back in 2019, which you alluded to, the GB squad, which I was fortunate to play in, there was not that many teams in that age categories playing, and now with it being on home turf as well, it's super exciting to have as many older gentlemen playing in these 2 brand new categories for a Touch World Cup. So this is just a really exciting time. We've played Ireland and Wales, of course, in the recent Euros. I played against New Zealand and watched my guys play against Australia. So we know we're going to be in for a real tough time against these guys, all of them, including the USA, who have been in the touch arena for some time now. So it's not going to be, by any chalk or imagination, a easy kind of pool to play in at all. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think what I'm really chuffed about in terms of, well, what does that mean for the 50s and 55s? It's really pleasing, really, that we've got this opportunity for extended pathways for players to keep playing. Chris alluded to it earlier. And that we've got those additional opportunities to play. But equally, it gives opportunity as well for more coaches to get in the mix, more volunteering opportunities with team managers and the support crew that sit behind us and all the rest of it. So I'm really chuffed that the ETA have seen what they can offer the world in terms of a legacy from our World Cup.
Ian, just as a quick one, as a player now, I mean, you are the part of the extended pathway, as Andy's just been talking about, stepping up into the 55s, to have these new and potentially, in 4 years' time or 5 years' time, could have a men's 60s squad, and have a viable men's 60s competition. As you get older, to have these pathways be extended, what does that mean for you as a player?
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, in my case, I was going to retire off to Malaysia, off to the World Cup in Malaysia, which was 45s. And then nationals came up, and I thought, well, okay, I better do that for Wildcats. I better carry on playing nationals. And then suddenly the 50s opened up, and I thought, well, okay, we'll carry on with this. And I was in a similar position in the 50s, because I'm at the sort of older age. I'm 55, so I'm sort of aging out of that. And again, I was about to retire at our last training session. I haven't told Andy this, but our last training session, I think it was in November for the 50s. And I was about to go up to him and say, that's it. I've done my time, And he's, just before I said it, he said, well, guys, we've had a thing from the FIT. 55s is now goable. We're going to do it. And I thought, well, that's it. I'm 55. I'm at the right age, for once, at the right age of the, in the right age for the category. So, I've kept on going. And to be honest, I need to do that. For me, very similar to Chris, it's something I found from, I played union, usual sort of thing. And I just got to the point where I started coaching kids, basically junior rugby, under sevens, I think it was, at a local rugby club. And as soon as I started coaching, I got hands on a ball. I thought, I want to play again. So I played a couple of vets games, not a great idea. And then basically sort of found touch. We sort of started playing a form of touch, and we played this is at Droitwich, at GTR Droitwich, and we decided we'd play the girls. The girls had a good team already in a local league, and they basically thrashed us. They did. We sort of tapped off, did a few passes around, got about 10 yards. They tapped off, did a 3-man drive, scored. We were like, what the hell's that? And a lot of us said, well, maybe we should learn how to play this. And then so I started looking on YouTube and finding out a bit more. We got a couple of, I think Claire Rylance and Sam Powers came down to help us out, who are long-term England players, and we sort of got coached up that way. But for me as a player, to be able to still play at the age I am, and play at a high level, it's just fantastic. It's and a great opportunity, to hopefully play another World Cup. It's I've done 2 Euros and a World Cup. If I could get another World Cup under my belt, I'd be quite happy. And maybe if I open up the 60s in a few years' time. I know that I think over in Australia they play a 60s league, and it's pretty competitive, and it's pretty, from what I've seen of it on YouTube, it's a pretty good standard. So maybe and these things have opened up over the last few years, haven't they? For us, certainly. I mean, I've always been in the older age groups. So when we started the 45s, I was in the 45s, and then the 50s, and then the 55s. So it was almost, when you were playing in that category, you thought, well, you've got nowhere to go. But actually, it's just happened at the right timing that we've opened up another age group, and I've managed to sort of hang on in there, which is, for me, is brilliant. I'm loving it. It's the best thing.
One to go around the horn with. Reflections on Malaysia, first off, in terms of as a World Cup, and I'm not going to allow you to say heat and humidity.
For me, the Malaysia World Cup was our first game against New Zealand. So you're thinking, okay, well, we'll see how we go. I go off on the starting, for some reason I'm on the starting pod, and I look across at the players I'm looking at, and I'm up against Pete Waters. He's the link opposite me. And I just thought, well, what are you going to do? The god of touch, basically. And they basically gave us a lesson on how to play touch. But it was brilliant. And as Andy said, to play against Australia and New Zealand, it's just a fantastic thing. These guys have been playing, probably these guys who are in our age category, playing from opens, probably. So it's just a great experience to play against players of that caliber. Whereas our guys, I would imagine, I'm not sure, I had a bit of a look at this earlier, and I would think possibly from our 45s, 50s and 55s, I don't imagine there's anyone that's played at open level. I think 40s was the first. I think my first actually would have been nationals, and I think I played men's 30s while I was 45. But really, I got into high performance in England at 40, in the 45s, when I was about 46, 47-ish. And I would say most of the people in our age group at the moment probably would be, they wouldn't have played under men's 40s probably. But I think as the years go by and we get players filtering up, I think that will, they will sort of start coming into it, and you will get those players that have played at that level. And that's the thing I think we need to close the gap between New Zealand and Australia, is basically having those players that have played at open level, have played a long time at high level, representing in the higher teams. They are going to give these, Australia and New Zealand a bit more of a run for the money, I would think. Whereas the men, we are still playing catch up at our age group. There's no doubt about it. I think the gap is closing, maybe. But I think as the years go by and let's say players start filtering up into these older age groups, we're going to be more competitive. There are much more people playing now. The coaching, as Chris said, the coaching has got a lot better. We're playing better standard, and there are more people playing. So that's what I think about it. Yeah, but Malaysia, that's my takeaway. Sorry, yeah, Pete Walters.
Mark and Andy, from a coaching perspective, what are the lessons that you learned from Malaysia to take into Nottingham?
That World Cup was my first tournament as a coach. So I think what I took away, bar the fact I think I cried at every time we did a huddle in the tent before we walked out of the England tent, and everybody sort of turns and claps and cheers you. That to me was that sort of like, this is it. We are, we're there, and it's so important. Hence why I was wearing my sunglasses all the time in the tent, because it was just so emotional. I'm a man that wears my heart on my sleeve and all around my body. At the end of the day, everybody will say I'm the one that'll have the voice that cracks if I'm given something that's emotional. I could get so involved. So I think for me, the learning curve for me was where I had to learn over the tournament to take the emotion out of my coaching, and start thinking more as a coach and less as a front row hooker. Really, my influence was done beforehand, and the interventions in the box. And that was all like a great steep learning curve for me. But it was good to do that, and then also to stand there and listen to other coaches whilst they're coaching in the boxes. And I was gaining a huge amount of knowledge and important golden eggs, that really, put into practice over the years.
I went over as a player, as referenced earlier with the GB squad, and that was really the starting point, really, in terms of taking it more seriously, if you like. I came to touch quite late, and started playing more competitively just past 15 to 51, and then I was 54 by the time I got to the World Cup. So from a player's perspective, even at 54, to represent your country, being into sports all my life and playing for your country in a sport that you love was just absolutely mind-blowing. So from a player's perspective, that was probably the most amazing time of my life. However, from a coaching perspective, when I was sat in the stands and I was watching the games that were playing, it was more of an epiphany come light bulb moment for me, in terms of, well, yeah, I recognise that my playing days were coming to an end for one reason or another, but actually there was opportunity to get into coaching, and that's when I made inroads when I came back from the World Cup into looking at how to get into coaching more. But watching the other teams play in the World Cup and how they played, that was really significant to me in terms of how they played, in terms of the composure, the structure behind their movements, the accuracy within their skill bases, and so on and so forth. So, well, that's something really that if I did get into coaching, I would try and bring across to try and close those skill gaps that there is between the southern and northern hemispheres. So it was two parts for me, really, because, like I say, the experience of playing as a schoolboy in a 54-year-old body, but equally the realization that actually you could go and do some coaching on after this, and it'd be still fun, and it really is still fun. I love every minute. in the England ranks and in the regional ranks and with my club. Yeah, so they're the 2 points I think I would take away from the World Cup, Chris.
Christian, for a player who's been in around several squads over a number of years, how have the preparations coming into this World Cup? How different are they to, say, your first or second experience?
So my first experience with Euros 2010 in Bristol, I managed to get into the squad. Found out there was an England setup, and pretty much everyone in that squad, apart from 3 or 4 players, had never really played a lot of touch. So that was a very steady environment. Our coach, Carle Skine, I don't think Carle's around England touch anymore, but South African guy, hugely experienced. He said to us, let's be a reliable Honda and not maybe a more unreliable Ferrari. So we played a very simple game plan to not overload us. And we came second. Lost to Wales in the final. So the preparation for that was all new for me. So I had to sort of adjust to understanding, in the lead up to, what the demands were, because the fitness level demands are very high. So yeah, took that away for the following year, which was World Cup in Scotland. So I guess the fitness level that I knew was required, I had to meet. We were in sunny Scotland for a week. We just lost narrowly to South Africa in the sort of semi-final match. Then we played Wales for the bronze medal, which we won. So winning a World Cup medal was beyond my wildest dreams, and I think that really kind of spurred me on to just keep wanting more, really. So I'm just trying to cast my mind back really now. It's been a while. So the preparation now and for the last few years, every aspect of it has been a lot more professional. So from nutrition to the fitness advice that we get, the chats we have around organising our thoughts, organising how we're going to behave in the box, the etiquette really, to try to just reduce the amount of noise in our own minds, and to try to kind of keep everybody focused. So I think that's probably the main thing, actually, is the focus that we now achieve. Having played for a while, that's what you want. You want to have really good clarity and try and be very positive, focus on the positives, just be very supportive. So I think that kind of side of it, maybe you want to call that the mental fitness side, has really come a long way. People around us, so the psychologists, spend a lot of time offline preparing documentation for us, having had chats with us, feedback. That's like so amazingly supportive that we've got guys there who probably in their own professional lives are sports psychologists. That's their line of work. So the level of professionalism, if you like, has come up, and it continues to do so. So there's always something new to learn. I think that's another thing, is always keeping an open mind, always open to learning more. Ian kind of alluded to YouTube as being a great resource of touch. There is so much good coaching on there as well, and I think I've sent Mark quite a few links over the last few months, because I do like to watch a lot of touch. Yeah, so it's all there for us now. So we've just got to keep learning, keep improving, keep our focus levels up, listen, collaborate, support, and just keep improving this, so that we can perform better within this wonderful game of ours, or not ours, but it's a world game now. Certainly was started by Australia, New Zealand close behind. So I was very lucky, because I played with London Galaxy for a number of years in the early 2010s, 2011, 2012. I actually played with Pete Walters in GIF. which was an incredible experience. The calmness of the guy is unbelievable, and his nature as well, just so positive, friendly, not intimidating in any way. And I think that's a really good lesson. Is that to have a friendly environment, supportive environment, I think really nurtures players' confidence. So yeah, so many lessons over the years. It's been a great ride, and I'm going to continue as long as I can.
Nottingham coming up. What are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, if we take what we experienced, Mark and I as a coaching unit, from the Euros and the experiences from there, and now Mark being head coach for the 50s and now the 55s, is implementing all those learnings that we've done while we've been going through our own personal journeys, and implement them into the World Cup and managing that. I think for me, though, really, is the whole experience is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I would absolutely encourage anyone, irrespective of age, to get into touch as soon as they can and go and experience these events, because they are once in a lifetime almost type of events where you can talk to your kids and your grandkids about, and all that kind of good stuff. I think having because we're focusing on Masters this evening, but to have Masters playing a World Cup on home turf is just super, super exciting across the two venues as well, which is just shows you how massive the competition is going to be, really. And equally, just watching my guys in the 55s, some of which were in the 50s during the Euros rotations, but I've also got some new chaps in there who maybe not played for a very long time at this level, or it might be their first adventure into this arena. And so I'm really looking to see what they get out of it. I love to see what people do and how they develop and all the rest of it, and what they take away from it, and see if it sparks any interest so they can take back to the club and that kind of thing. I just can't wait, Chris. It can't come quick enough, really, notwithstanding the limited amount of training camps I've got left. But yeah, I really am looking forward to it.
Ian, we'll stick with the 55s. How about you?
Yeah, it's a similar thing for me. It's as I mentioned before, I'd love to get another World Cup under my belt. One of the main things for me is we've probably got about five guys that I have probably played with for over 10 years now. And one of the big takeaways for me is it's the friendship and the bonds that you make within your own team, and if you're on tour with players in other teams who you might have met or you might have played against. And it's the whole sort of England family thing for me that has been a real eye opener. It's why I still do it. Those sort of friendships are absolutely fantastic. In our age group, again, when I started in the 45s, we were a bunch of guys who didn't know each other, and we're starting from the beginning. And I think actually it takes probably a good 2 years for a squad to formulate and get close and start sort of running things, running things well. I think the 50s are just about there with that. The 45s now they're well there, and they've got players filtering up who are experienced. And I think with the 55s, I'm in a similar situation now that I was when we first started the 45s, that we've got maybe 6, 7 core players that are experienced, have played well and played together before, and we've got quite a few new guys. So for my build-up, Chris was saying about his build-up for the World Cup and what we're working on at the moment. For me now, it's more about getting those inexperienced players up to speed, which is what I'm trying to help out with. That's what I feel adds value at the moment into the training sessions. So my sort of thing that I'm doing at the moment is under Andy's instruction. He's giving us the framework to work with, and we've got to get those players up to speed and pretty quickly, because this was only formulated fairly recently. So we have a number of players who say fairly inexperienced, and it'll be about that team bonding thing as well. And I think there suddenly comes a point with the team when you suddenly get that everyone knows each other, they know how each other play, And you get that camaraderie going into a tournament where and it all sort of fires up, and it always comes together for a major tournament. And that's what I'm really looking forward to, is that build up to that, and getting all the guys on the up to the same level, doing the same things, so we all know what we're going to do. That's the main thing for me, and what I'm sort of trying to work on at the moment, really.
Mark?
Okay, so for me, what I'm most looking forward to on the pitch, I'm really looking forward to seeing all the hard work we've done over not just the last few months, the last few years, coming through and seeing it under pressure and seeing how it all works together. But at the same time, it's pitching, our width and everything against the world, which is just, it's phenomenal. Off the pitch, what I'm really looking forward to is, first of all, I've coached a lot of the guys that have gone up to the 55s. I've coached a few years ago. Well, I've gone through 3 junior touch tournaments with my kids, and coached in one of them, and seeing a lot of those under 18s that are now playing in the open category, and they still come up, they still throw their arms around you and say, "Yeah, no, how are you doing?" And just walking around and meeting all your friends you've met over the years. You've met all their parents, and they come up to you and ask how you are. And, it's just phenomenal. The camaraderie across everywhere, every age group, every nation, they're all willing to chat. And it's just phenomenal. I just love it. Really do. And that opening ceremony, doesn't matter what goes on in the opening ceremony, it's just looking around and seeing all these touch players and coaches and volunteers. And, oh, God, it's just phenomenal. It really is.
Chris, I think just as well as in terms of what you're looking forward to, I think, and again, and sorry, just to go back to the reflection in terms of the experience in Scotland in 2011, I mean, reckon about 4,000 players this time around. I mean, could you have imagined then that a few years later it was going to be this big, and what are you looking at forward for the experience?
Yeah, I suppose 4,000 is a huge number. I think it was more like 2.5, maybe less back then. It was still a big event, but this is going to be, massive. I believe it's the first World Cup England's hosted, right? So that in itself is amazing. So I just wanted to say, actually, Ian, your 55s, when we played you last camp, super impressed. So you guys are definitely on the right track. You were a lot better than any of us thought you were going to be. So fantastic, Andy. Congratulations on all the work you've done there. Really impressive. So stay confident. But yeah, the World Cup itself, it's just that feeling of pride, really, as well. Having worked for an England shirt, but also working for your touch out of the England setup as well. I think all culminates into the internationals that you get to play if you're lucky enough, and to not take that for granted. It's just a wonderful atmosphere. And as for kind of the people you see around you, I mean, as I say, I've been around it for a while, so you do see some guys and girls from back in the day. And we all kind of rekindle and talk about old times, and it's such a collegiate atmosphere, but everybody's so positive and friendly. But then when we're on the pitch, it's a different story. The focus comes to us all, and we're just going to, as a squad, as a team, we will function at 100%. I'm totally convinced of it in the 50s. The last game we played, there were some really good signs of us linking up in all 3 parts of the field. So, sort of defence, midfield and attack. So for us, it's really starting to come together. So if we can get to that World Cup and fire on all cylinders, then it would just be an amazing experience. So thoroughly looking forward to it. So yeah, can't wait.
And one final question, and this is, and I'm going to go with Chris first because he's on my screen, but then Mark, Ian, and Andy, in that order. Which country's stash are you wanting to get the most?
Probably Australia, I think. I've been there a couple of times and I absolutely love it. And I've got a huge respect for them being the seat of the game as well. And a chance to have a chat with a few of the Aussie guys, I think would be really cool as well. Exchange some shirts, exchange some stories, shake some hands. So yeah, Aussie shirt for me if I can.
Mark?
To be honest with you, it's only the Fijians that grow big enough to get a top that will fit me. So I've got to add to the Fijian stash. And that is the honest to God truth. However, I'll take anybody's stash, but the Fijians are the only ones that will fit me. Say no more.
Ian, how about you?
Yeah, for me, well, got to admit to making a bit of a faux pas at the last World Cup. I managed to, in my trading, I managed to get hold of a pair of 2 pairs of ladies' French shorts, which I had to return. They weren't going to fit. I did try them on. So for me, yeah, Aussie kit's got to be the one. I did get some. I think I've got some New Zealand shorts, but for me, the Aussie one because they're the hardest to get. They shut the tent, don't let anyone in. So if I can get one of those, I'll be happy.
And Andy?
Yeah, so I was quite fortunate. I managed to get into that tent, Rosie, and I've got an Australian and a New Zealand shirt, which I still wear. You know, I like to put it on when I'm playing at the club and so on. I got a Singapore, I got Malaysia, I got those ones. I've got the Fijian one, Mark. You're more than welcome to try it on that. But I think USA from my group, I reckon, Chris. I think that's probably a rare one too, really. I think I'll go for that one.